learn how to deal with snarky remarks, because I guarantee you will get them. Hello lovely feminine women, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting our community. It means so much to me. If you are new here, please hit the red subscribe button down below, because on this channel we talk about femininity and we also talk about aspects of homemaking. That brings me into today's video where we are going to discuss how to be a housewife. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer, don't come for me because I am not the only person on the internet who has talked about how to become a homemaker, how to become a housewife, but I just wanted to put in my 2 cents on the topic. I of course do not have extensive experience with housewifery, but I thought that I would give you some of my tips, some of the things that I have learned, some of the things that I've discussed with other women, and of course some of the things that I have inherited from my mother, who has gone in and out of being a full-time homemaker, in and out of being a housewife. If you're interested in my background, in why I'm interested in talking about femininity as well as homemaking, you can go to the About Me section of my YouTube channel, or you can scroll down below to the description box to find a little bio. Follow me on Instagram. I have put my handle down here and as well in the description box, because you can really see the day-to-day living of a housewife. If you are a longtime subscriber to this channel, you know that I like to make a distinction between homemaking and being a housewife. I think that everybody in their own way can be a homemaker, but being a housewife really kind of deals with becoming a full-time homemaker. Many of you might not be interested in becoming a full-time homemaker, becoming a housewife, but I do think that there is some information in this video that could be of interest. Also, if you have been a full-time homemaker, a housewife for quite some time, or even if you are just new and you have something to add to the conversation, please leave it in the comment section down below, because I do know that even though we are a small community on YouTube, many of the women who watch my videos like to read the comments section and like to learn from all of you. So without further ado, let me get into the first tip that I have for you on how to become a housewife, which is the transition. So we are going to start with the youngest age group of women who are looking to transition. Those of you who are going to college, those of you who think you want to go to school but you do want to become a housewife. What I would suggest for you is to pick the career option with the most bang for your buck. So what I mean by that is a career that allows you to easily transition from full-time work to part-time work, where the options of getting hired are very easy, and you can easily leave that career and come back in several years. I'm thinking like nursing, I'm thinking teaching, all those kinds of careers like that. Something in technology perhaps, where you can work from home. When you are looking to become a housewife, you might not want to go directly into becoming a full-time homemaker. You might not want to leave your life entirely, your career entirely. It might be something that is very important to you, and I do believe that a lot of women do find some satisfaction in having a little bit of part-time work or some side hustles. And if you choose strategically, if you want to go to school, there is the caveat of really knowing that you want to do what you want to do in terms of schooling, because you don't want to waste a lot of money. But if you do decide to make that decision, and it is a good financial decision for you in terms of that, I would suggest that you go for those career options that give you the most bang for your buck, and they give you the option to have a little bit of part-time work. You would also want to pick something that doesn't require that you gather so many years of experience in order to make a decent income. You want to have that opportunity to be able to go back into the workforce when your children are grown, if that is something that you want. Going back to the caveat of paying for school, if you know that you want to be directly a full-time homemaker, you want to be a housewife, you might not want to go that route, just because you don't know when you marry your husband. If you marry him at about the same age as you are, he's probably not going to be making that much money. And if you have a lot of student loans, I know it's a little bit different in Canada. The student fees, the fees to go to school are not that bad depending on which province you live in, but if you live in the United States, that is something that you are going to want to seriously think about, pray about, and perhaps take a few years off to really determine what you want, or of course to find a husband. I'm not an expert on this topic, but those are just a little bit of tidbits of information that I have gathered throughout the years. The second point is of course finding your husband, because if you want to become a full-time housewife, chances are you're doing it because you want a family-centered life. You want your family to be your job. You want taking care of your husband as well as your children to be your main priority. With that being said, you're of course going to want to look for men who have an interest in having you have that role. But I think that instead of going about it and looking for men that are interested in having a full-time homemaker wife solely, one of the easier ways to do it, because they're not going to be walking around in your day-to-day life with a sign saying, I want a housewife, especially now in the times that we live in right now. A lot of men who say that kind of get like persecuted for it. So another way to approach it would be to look for masculine men. I get criticized on this channel a lot for not defining masculinity, but considering this is a femininity focused channel, one thing that you could do is actually go into that realm of YouTube where there are masculinity videos, or you could read about masculinity. I am not an expert in teaching you about masculinity.
So I'm editing the video and I decided that I would leave you some links down below for you to better understand masculinity. One thing that I want you to understand is just like femininity, girliness doesn't necessarily equal femininity. That would apply to the same basically standard for men. Masculinity deals more with your role as like a father, a brother, a son, honorable characteristics that embody those roles. You don't necessarily have to be a typical manly man in order to be masculine. Masculinity deals more with character traits.
But there were some qualities of masculinity that I really admired, and I took note of that as qualities that I would want in my future husband. So when I was looking for somebody to marry, I was focused on finding a man who embodied masculine characteristics. The reason why I encourage you to look for a masculine husband and not solely a husband that is advertising that they want a full-time homemaker is because the masculine man is going to structure his life where he's not going to be dependent on his future wife's income in order to, I guess, structure the way in which he's living his life. He's going to look more at your income, whatever you choose to do in your life, as a kind of bonus in the family. Now, there are hard times. There are times when, you know, your masculine husband might be building his empire or whatever it may be, or climbing the ladder in his job. Of course, not every masculine man is going to be in a field where he's going to make a lot of money. But the point is that there might be times where you could choose to, of course, put in more of your financial efforts into the pot of the family earnings. But what I generally mean is that he's not going to marry you with the intent of knowing the exact dollar amount that you're going to be bringing in and relying on that. This is going to make it easier for you because as you go through life, you might have circumstances such as children that is going to cause for you to want to become a full-time housewife, and you're going to want to have that option. Also, when you are dating that kind of man, there are ways to introduce your desires of your future life without being overbearing and to kind of get his opinion on it. For example, instead of directly saying on the second date that I want to be a housewife, although you could do that, that is another thing that you could do. You could ease into the conversation by saying, I'm really interested in, for example, like nursing, but I see myself staying home for a large majority of my life or working part-time because I'd really like to be there for my husband as well as my children. And that will open up a conversation, and you'll better be able to pick up his vibe, because like I said, in the modern century right now, the modern times right now, the 21st century, if you ask him directly if he wants a housewife for a wife, that might make him very scared because of the way in which men are kind of persecuted for it. Another thing that you can do is to ask about how his experience growing up was with his mother. For example, maybe his mother was a single mother and she had a lot of struggles. So maybe you could have a conversation with him about easing into the topic of being a housewife so that your family could not undergo those similar struggles. Of course, as your relationship progresses, that is the time where you can be more direct and you can say, the expectation that I have after I get married, because I want to get married, is to be a housewife, for example, right away or after a few years when we have kids. Now, the next one deals with finances. Of course, depending on the structure of your relationship with your husband, who is going to have a majority stronghold on the finances is going to vary. However, as a future housewife, it's very important that you understand certain elements of finances. It's important that you kind of have an idea about investing, you kind of have an idea about being frugal, because you're going to want to have the best life possible on a smaller income. Regardless of if your husband makes a lot of money, when you think about it, if your husband has a high earning job where he's making 6 figures, the normal cost of living, like right now, even for upper middle class, is going to be even much higher because you tend to have households with 2 people making higher incomes. And this would be kind of similar for lower income families. The middle class is a little bit different right now. Before, your husband, if he chose perhaps a field in public service where he would be making like $50,000 a year, let's just say, that was extremely normal for one household to survive on that kind of income. But now things have changed a little bit, and that's a great income, and you can definitely make it work because there are many housewives on the internet that do make it work on small incomes. I have seen people like Coffee with Kate who make it work on like $30,000 a year. So you can make anything work, but in order to do that, you're going to have to acquire the skills that are needed in your income bracket. Because at any type of housewife, unless you are like the billionaire housewife, but even at that, those women, I have seen some of them on Instagram. This is a little bit of a tangent, but they are still very interested in like the investment that their husband makes. So my point is, long story short, figure out what you're working with and try to acquire the skills for what you're working with. There are, of course, elements that can talk to you right off the top of my head. Life insurance, investing in your home, making wise decisions. The first home that we bought in this area was falling apart. I'm telling you, it was totally falling apart. But you have to learn to look for gems like that if you're looking to further your investment in the housing market. You want to look for those deals. People are usually going to go for the shiny new builds. You have a different situation. You're probably not going to go for the shiny new builds. The next one we have to talk about is mindset. I have addressed in my Q&A the criticism that you might get, of course, for living out your femininity and living out being a housewife, being a full-time homemaker. You are going to want to learn how to deal with criticism, learn how to deal with snarky remarks, because I guarantee you will get them. So you're going to want to build emotional resilience towards that. You are also going to want to deal with your jealousy and comparison. I have harped on this channel that it's normal to feel the kind of like twinge of jealousy creeping up on you. So you're going to want to be able to like filter out the people on social media, even filter out things in your own life, and learn to be happy for other people and learn to be grateful for other people. Gratitude and prayer is one way that I have overcome this, because no matter what you get into in your life, you could be somebody who has so many things and so many blessings. If you don't deal with your like jealousy and your negative feelings towards comparison, they're always going to come back in. There's always going to be somebody new to compare yourself to. And as a housewife, you are making kind of like a very unpopular decision. You are making a outlier decision. You're always going to be an outcast. So you're going to want to be able to deal with those emotions. Another good way, and I've talked about this as well on my channel often, is to plug into the community of women who live a similar life to you. Because chances are, if you live, I guess, like on the east side of the country like I do, you probably are not going to be in close contact with a lot of people who live a similar lifestyle, or if they do, they have like 6 kids already. So don't underestimate the power of social media friends. A lot of you that I have met through this channel, I would feel comfortable driving over to your state, to your city, and having a cup of coffee with you. And the last point I'm going to talk about is honing your skills. Learn some homemaking skills. Learn how to cook properly, like from scratch. You don't have to start totally cooking from scratch. That is very overwhelming, I have found. Start by putting together simple meals, like high school level simple meals, because the truth is many of us don't take home ec anymore, and we don't have cooking skills because we didn't think that it was important when we were teenagers. So start off with easy basic recipes. On Pinterest, I have like a board of a bunch of easy recipes that you can make with already like pre-made ingredients. And then what I suggest that you do, which I am still working on this, is to look at that meal that you have constructed and ask yourself, okay, which ingredient can I take out of that meal and I can make from scratch? For example, pasta. You have the noodles, you have the sauce, you have the cheese. Okay, you look at that very simple basic meal and you think about, what part of the meal can I make from scratch now that I've mastered being able to cook al dente pasta. The sauce is the easiest thing that you can progress to next, learning how to master. Learn how to cook homemade tomato sauce, then vary it and spice it up and learn how to cook different kinds of sauces. And then you could progress to learning how to cook pasta from scratch. That is just an example, but you get where I'm going. Same with cleaning. Learn basic tidying skills to start off. And then what you're going to do is learn how to master one room at a time. There are so many cleaning influencers out there that you can learn cleaning skills from. One of my friends, Chelsea at The Humble Homemaker, I'm going to link her profile down below. You can go there and you can click on any one of her videos. She even has a series about basic homemaking skills. These are things that a lot of us are embarrassed to ask right now, but like I stated before, we don't take home ec anymore, or maybe you do because you go to a special school that has enough teachers to teach that, but that is not something that is prevalent here in my part of Canada. So there's no shame in owning the fact that you might not know how to clean, you might not know how to cook properly, you might not know how to create ambiance in your home. I am still learning. I am not perfect. There are things that even if you see in my video, I cook very simple stuff sometimes. I clean very simply, but it is all a process, and I hope that by the time I am 40, I'm going to have those skills. What kind of keeps me motivated is being able to teach my children these skills. Cooking and cleaning is a life skill. My husband was in the army before. They teach you like how to clean there. There's a reason why they teach you how to be orderly. I think this video is long enough, and I have a few other things I need to do now on my to-do list. Maybe I will brace the grocery store today, brace the line at the grocery store, pray for me. So I hope you continue to be healthy, happy. If you have any suggestions, leave them down below. Let me know. Add on to the conversation. I love to discuss things with you, and I love you all feminine women. I will see you in our next video. Bye-bye.